What is up, everybody? How is everybody doing? So we're on a lazy Sunday here, January 17th, 2021. And the SHSAT still has not happened. It's going to be in about 11 days, I think, right? Or 10 days, maybe? 7, 8, yeah, it's going to be in 10 days for most of you. At least the grade 8 SHSAT. There's been some information posted about so the grade 8 SHSAT should be January 27th and the makeup day of February 10th. I'm doing this for my brain. The SHSAT 9, I believe, is going to be on Saturday the 27th with a second date for Sunday, February 7th. As well, those latter two dates are also for students who are not coming from DOE schools. They might be coming from a charter school or a parochial school or things like that. Welcome, everybody. Hello, people joining now, and welcome peace in for people who are coming from the replays. I'm Greg from GregsTutoringNYC. My email is floating along the bottom there. It's right there in the corner at the moment. In fact, we can get rid of that other thing for now. I don't think we're going to use that right away or at all. I set it up. Please subscribe. I think we're on section number 10 of this. So we're ripping to shreds the SHSAT handbook from cover to cover. I have another handbook that I have available here. Let me post it into the chat. Give me 1 second here. I also have done cover to cover on the 2017 handbook. You can find all the links to everything right there. Okay. Please please subscribe. This takes a lot of my time to do. We're already in part 10, and each section is taking about an hour to an hour and a half each. So we've already invested about 15 hours just into this, just for you guys. I do have private students, so if you still need tutoring, I'm still available. I'm basically available 24/7 at this point. For anybody who needs it, I can do it early in the morning. I can do it late at night. I can do it 1 o'clock in the morning if you guys even want that. Could be as few as one session. Okay, so it just depends on what you guys are needing. In the meantime, I'm going through this cover to cover. I normally don't cover the current handbook with my students. I have enough material to go through other stuff and so on. So it's up to you guys. Welcome, welcome. So what we're doing is we're trying to approach the passages. That's the section we're on now. So we've done 4 or 5 other ones. We're trying to approach them with purpose. A lot of you guys are just viewing the passages as just this big blob that you have to get through, and it's dry and it's boring and it's uninteresting and right? So I'm trying to give you alternate ways to approach it that will keep your brain actually occupied on the passage itself. So what we're kind of going through is a little bookkeeping, if you will, where we're taking notes on stuff, really super terse notes. That's slowing down these live streams a little bit. So what I've done is I've gone through this time and actually made some of the notes already. So the approach we're taking so far is to look at the questions first, so we kind of have a heads up, and we're also going into the passage to look for things that it's saying to do. All right. So question 49 is looking for problem solution stuff in paragraph 2 that can contribute to the development of the passage. So what I've gone into is go into paragraph 2. Okay. On the right side, I put a bracket around the whole passage on the left side there, referred the question back, question 49, and we're looking for the problem solution and the development of the main idea. Main idea is a running theme through all the passages, okay? And this is something you guys really need to jump in and do. So now we have a concept of that. We're going to be kind of looking for that. Question 50 is about sequencing in paragraph 3, okay? And the overall structure. So I went and noted that on paragraph 3 and referred it back to 50 as well. Sequencing, and I put an arrow here because we're looking for the development of the main idea over here and how it affects the structure of the passage over here. All right. So it means when we come back in here and we finally do the first read of this, and there's only going to be one read. You're going to read this one through once, and you're going to read it maybe a half an extra time when you're looking up questions, okay? So when you're doing your read, you're going to know that you need to emphasize, oh, and when I read paragraph 3, there's a sequencing and a structure question, that kind of a thing, okay? And you're going to take about a minute to do all this for all your questions. So I'm being repetitive because some of you guys are emailing me and that's still not getting the full picture. And I'm trying to emphasize that this is something you guys should do, all right? Just hang on one second. I'm going to make sure we're live. So again, I'm Greg from Greg's Tutoring. Hopefully everybody's doing all right. I've been tutoring for various high-stakes testing for... Okay, I've been doing this for a while on a lot of tests. There's a lot of commonality that falls out, which is that students read passages and they're confused. They don't know what the question means. They don't know what the choices mean. They don't know how to rip it apart, and then they don't know how to piece it together again. You have problems. We're trying to do problem solving here. As much as this is about the passage, this is really about the questions and choices, because that's where you're being tested on. And then at the questions and choices, this is really about logic and breaking things down and taking a problem and making it into smaller pieces and bite-sized pieces and really figuring out how to analyze something, okay? This is about analytics more than it is about it. A lot of you, I don't remember the passage, I don't do this, I don't do that. Don't worry about so much of that. It'll come naturally when you start doing all these bookkeeping things and knowing what to look for. So that's why I'm ripping this to shreds in such detail and letting you guys know what to look for. Okay, 51 is a main idea question. Okay, so this doesn't really refer back to any passage. Okay, these kind of questions. So I went into paragraph 7 and context-sized that. And it's looking for dramatic and spectacular. What's so significant about those? So this is pretty isolated. This question is pretty much just talking about this. And a lot of the bold-faced things, the questions of this style, sometimes you can almost answer these without looking at the passage. I am not suggesting that. I said the word almost. So you still do have to read it and you still have to get the context, okay, guys? So be careful on stuff like that. Okay, 53. So I went in and emphasized that. And you can give this a quick read if you want, the boldface part, but it's really a vocabulary question relating to the context of the passage. The context of the passage is the author's point of view, it's the tone, it's the structure, it's the main idea, it's the theme, it's the plot, it's all that good stuff, all right? 53 is which sentence best summarizes how that happens. So this has no paragraph references at all. So what you're going to do is just take note. They're looking for the summary of how we obtained the funding, okay? And we're getting a slight heads up that this is about telegraphs, okay? And if you look at some of the questions, there's that running theme through it. This also doesn't not refer back to a thing, but so it's a general thing that either maybe it focuses on paragraph 105 or maybe it's about the whole passage, okay? We have to see. So the idea, is this essential one or not, that the U.S. was mostly unaware of the possibilities of electricity. So it's about the U.S. being unaware of the possibilities of electricity, okay, is illustrated. So something that's being demonstrative is demonstrating that thought, okay? Okay, 55 is what's the author most likely agree with. This is an author's point of view question. So again, we're not giving paragraphs here. So this might still focus on a paragraph, but it's still about a whole understanding of the passage. Okay, and then 56 is how does the map, okay, provide additional support for the central idea. So there's an infographic here. That they give in this passage. This is not used too often on the SHSAT. So there's an infographic there and there's an infographic there. They're talking about this one. How does this map affect something, okay? So you can actually refer the question back to there if you want or not. Notice I did on the other one there. So this is slide bookkeeping. You are going to have physical paper, so this is going to be a fast process for you guys, okay? And then how does the graph support that? So paragraph 8 is saying something, and I put information about that going back and forth. All right, and then we're up to the math section. Yay! All right, so what we're going to do is go back into the passage and start looking at it. We're going to read it out loud. That's the approach I'm taking on this. I've done many passages online before, and I have not literally gone through them at this level. So I'm figuring, let me give you guys a different take on this. So first of all, this passage has this here. So that's the abstract. It's normally italics, right? And don't skip this. Do not skip. Some of you may think this is directions, especially since it's before the title, or you may just your mind might just naturally skip over it. Do not skip it. It's telling you something about the passage. Samuel Morse, an inventor, is credited with creating electronic telegraph, a communications device that allows users to send messages using a short or long pulse. So you guys know Morse code, all that stuff like that, okay? But we're trying to get information from the passage about this. We're not always supposed to be pulling information we know about the world. Most of the questions are asking you what the passage says, not what you think it says, not what your opinion is, and not what you know about the subject. It's about what the passage only says, okay? In 1844, the U.S. Congress passed the Telegraph Bill, which provided Morse with the funds to build an electrical system. So we have Morse, okay, electronic telegraph, and he got funds to do that. And it's to send messages. So there's a lot packed into there. It's the telegraph, right? Details about the telegraph. We're just writing along the side some thoughts about it. We're trying to commit this to our short-term memory. And by doing these little notes, circling stuff, and putting a little notes on the side, you're committing your brain to kind of memorize that. Now, this passage is split up into sections. So in some ways, the author is helping us with the structure and organization of our understanding of what is trying to be told to us. So early signal systems. So it told us up here that Morse code allowed us to send and communicate stuff. So this must be about that, okay? So let's focus on that and see what's going on here. And when we're reading, we're looking to understand the main idea of each paragraph. We're trying to find the plot, the events that might be happening here, right? This is kind of seems to be half of a science paragraph and maybe half of a biography of Morse, okay? So we may have a kind of a mixed paragraph here. So we're just trying to understand that and kind of see what's kind of happening or not, all right? So we're going to be looking for the main idea. Is the author expressing any point of view that seems significant for us? We're also looking for the difference between topic things and things that are supporting the topic. And we're also looking for turning points. Okay, there may not be a turning point in the story. We have to see. Okay, and when I say story, I just mean passage. I don't mean it's nonfiction or fiction or a recipe or whatever. I'm going to call them all a story. Okay. Long before Morse electrically transmitted his famous message, "What hath God wrought?" from Washington to Baltimore, there were signal systems that enabled people to communicate over distances. Okay, so that got mentioned again because we have it over here on the top. It was mentioned in the abstract. Most were visual or semaphore systems using flags or lights. In the 18th century, such systems used an observer who would decipher a signal from a high tower on a distant hill and then send it on to the next station. Wow, that's wild, right? The young American Republic wanted just such a system along its entire Atlantic coast and offered a prize of $30,000 for a workable proposal. The framers of this legislation, and this little one here means to go look at the bottom, because they're going to give us a definition, and that's this here. So it's the Telegraph Bill. If you notice, that was also mentioned up in the abstract right here. So this seems to be significant. We're not exactly sure yet. We're not into too many details yet. So the framers of this legislation, give me one second. Did I get rid of that other thing there? Yeah, okay, you guys can see the screen here though. The framers of this legislation had no way of knowing that they would use the word telegraph to refer to this visual semaphore system that would be offered, that they would be offered an entirely new and revolutionary means of communications. So topic sentences are normally at the beginning of a sentence, but it turns out, I believe, our topic sentence is down here. That phrase right there, that's our topic sentence. And that, I hope, is the running thing through the whole passage here. That the telegraph is giving us a new and revolutionary way to communicate via electricity. All right? So telegraph, new, and it's rad. Let's say it's radical. Okay? It's new and radical. Okay? And there is some details there that offer us, and I guess the main thing is it's electric. Because they do have this thing already, but it's done by manpower, if you will. Okay, so early signal systems is talking about that, okay? The growth of an idea. This is relating to the main idea referring to here. So something might be the meat of this further. Furthermore, it's looking for a problem solution here for the other question. Also in the development of the main idea, okay? And then the next paragraph of that is looking for sequencing and structure. So as we're reading this, we're going to try to see if we can pull that out. At least be conscious of it if you can't answer it directly, because we don't know what the choices are yet. We just know what we're supposed to be looking for, okay? So the idea of using electricity to communicate over distance is said to have occurred to Morse during a conversation aboard a ship when he was returning from Europe to 1832. Michael Faraday's recently invented the electromagnet was much discussed by the ship's passengers. And when Morse came to understand how it worked, he speculated that it might be possible to send a coded message over a wire. Right? The growth of an idea. It might be possible to do that. Okay. While a student at Yale, he had written his parents a letter about how interesting he found the lectures on electricity. Despite what he learned at Yale, Morse found that when he began to develop his ideas, that he had little understanding of the nature of electricity. And after sporadic attempts to work with stuff, he finally turned to help. Okay? So, Morse, how we want to word this? Morse learns. Morse's learning years, if you will, perhaps. Not sure where the author's going here. It's a problem and solution. So we're supposed to be looking at that for question 49 over here. So what's the problem and solution? The problem is trying to get communicate over a wire. And he's trying to seek, is there a way to do that? Okay. And that's a running theme. If that's the main idea, because if this was the topic sentence of that, it's probably the topic sentence of the whole passage as well. Okay. So we're always trying to poke our brain to keep in sync with that. All right. Is everybody with me? There's a few people out there. Please subscribe. Please like. Please ask me questions. I love for this to be interactive. So Gal. So it said the last thing it turned to help for somebody in the University of New York. New York, yay! Gal was a professor of chemistry and familiar with the electrical work of Princeton's Joseph Henry, a true pioneer in the new field. All right, so this is new stuff again, it's emphasizing. Okay. Well before Morse had a shipboard idea about a telegraph, Henry rang a bell from a distance. So there's some work already ongoing. By 1831, he had published an article, who, I guess is talking about Henry, of which Morse was unaware, that contained details suggesting the idea of an electronic telegraph. So Morse was not necessarily the first person to think of this, and he may not even be truly the first person to have done it. So Gale's help and his knowledge of the article proved crucial to Morse. So we have Henry, we have Gale, we have Morse. So there's a few people kind of collaborating either directly or indirectly. So Gale's help and his knowledge of the article proved crucial to Morse's telegraph system, because Gale not only pointed out flaws in Morse's system, but showed Morse how he could regularly boost the strength of the signal and overcome distance problems he had encountered. So they're evolving. The telegraph evolves. It's still not there yet, it seems, but there's progress happening, right? Henry's experiments, Gale's assistance, and soon after hiring a widows, the key to success. So teamwork. Is that going to be important? Sometimes that gets asked for us about various topics and things like that as well. The 27th, yes, with a makeup day on the 10th for grade 8. Only if you're a DOE student. If you're not a DOE student, it's on the February 29th or whatever, and January 29th and February 7th. I said it earlier. It's on the DOE website as well. It's on my website too. If you go to GregsTutoringNYC.com, I have the exact dates on there. So that's what's going on there. Then obstacles and opportunities. So as it evolves, apparently problems happen and good things, I guess. So by December 1837, Morse had enough confidence in his new system. Which info is wrong? Morse had enough confidence in his new system to apply for the federal government's appropriation, and during the next year he conducted demonstrations of his telegraph, both in New York and Washington. So he did demos, so it's evolving further. Okay. However, when the economic disaster known as the Panic of 1837 happened, the nation took hold and caused the Great Depression. So the Great Depression is a setback for him. Okay. Morse was forced to wait for better times. It was during this period that Morse visited Europe. Whoops. Again. So he goes to Europe again, and he tries to get the patent there instead. Okay. There's a ... here, so it kind of leaves us off there. So setback. Maybe there's a little confusion. Okay. By 1843, the country, they're talking about the United States, was beginning to recover economically, and Morse again asked Congress for the 30K. Okay. So he's again asking Congress. That would allow him to build a telegraph line from Washington to Baltimore, 40 miles away. The House of Representatives eventually passed a bill containing the Morse appropriation, and the Senate approved in the final hours of the last session. With the signature, he had the cash he needed, and he began to carry out the plans. Okay? All systems go. He's approved, and now he needs to do something about it. So realizing a great invention. So now he's got to put his actions where his mouth was speaking, right? He's got to pony it up. Okay. Morse had hired the ingenious construction engineer Ezra Cornell to lay the pipes carrying the wire. Although Cornell did his job superbly, one of Morse's partner, Congressman Smith, had purchased wires with defective insulation. Oh, that's going to be a lot of fun. Too much time had been wasted laying bad wire, and with the project on a rigid deadline, something had to be done quickly. So there's a little panic setting. He got the cash, he's good to go, and like, uh-oh, we got bad wire. Cornell suggested that the fastest and cheapest way was to string wires overhead on trees and poles. Okay? This is the quote where they're asking about dramatic and spectacular and how it's affecting things. That's in question 52. So the desperate Morse, right? He's desperate now. If you notice a running theme when we look at these passages, we're trying to look for these kind of drama words. That authors use, because the test writers seem to like to pick up on that kind of stuff like that. So the desperate Moss gave the go-ahead to do it on poles instead of on the ground, and the line was completed for the drama and spectacular again. They're all kind of vivid details that are pumping up excitement, right? He went from desperation to now it's dramatic and spectacular, that kind of a thing. Between the Supreme Court of the Capitol building to the Baltimore. So they hit a problem. They seem to find a solution. Again, this is odd because if you notice, we go back to paragraph 2, I think it was. Question 49 actually asked about a problem solution thing that happened here, but it's not asked about this paragraph. So will the choices give a distractor in paragraph number 7 based on that other question or not? We have to see. Okay. Okay. Question paragraph 8 is referring to question 57 over here, and it's referring to see the graph. Right. Question 57 said see the graph about paragraph 8. So there's some interrelationship that's going to happen there when we actually look at those things, because the next things we're actually done with the passage already. Soon, as overhead wires connected cities up and down, so there's kind of a turning point right here, if you will, right there. That they're talking about the process of how we got there, and whoosh, we're flipping into modern times, even if it was like 50 years later or something. Soon, as overhead wires and cities went up and down the coast. So we know that didn't happen overnight. It may have taken a year or two at least. So we have to put that in perspective. The dots and dashes method, and it gives us the definition down here. The short, long, and pulse, beep, beep, bop, 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 bop. Okay, what's sent through telegraph operators. That recorded message on long moving strips of paper were replaced by the operators able to interpret the codes. So it's almost evolved technologically, but it's still, here's a weird thing, and maybe there's a connection here. Remember the semaphores? Still had to be done by people. So imagine how many telegraph operators there were, especially if there were millions of messages going back and forth. And this happens to come from the invention of the telegraph from the Library of Congress. You guys should look at these just in case a question you're not sure what country it's located in or things like that. You should be doing that. The main idea, when you finish your passage, you should write a snapshot of the main idea. So I took what I thought the passage told me, and I connected it into that original topic sentence over here. This one here, the last part of the first paragraph, the last sentence there that I said was the topic sentence. Okay. And I tried to combo it. And I also went back to the abstract, because that's giving us, sometimes that gives us a whole picture, and sometimes it just gives us feeder information to feed into the passage. So I took the whole thing, the topic and that, and kind of combined it together. And an important thing running through the passage, so it was about the telegraph, but what about it? How it connected the world? Because that's really what the last paragraph is about. Okay, and if in a odd way, this from here to here is our topic sentence as well, right? So it gives a nice closure to it as well. It brings us full circle through what the topic is about here. Okay. So the telegraph soon extended westward, and with the Morse's own lifetime, they connected the continents of Europe and America. Wow, that must have been cool for that guy. So the main idea is the telegraphs connected the world, and I almost put in parentheses here, via electricity, because that's the key. And it even mentions that earlier too. If you go back to the topic, where is that? Right here, right? Electricity is being pointed out there to us. Okay, so that's our analysis. We went through the questions, put context things. We got some clues. We have a mild heads up of what the passage was about. We ripped the passage apart. So now we're going to rip the questions apart. Oh, but first we're going to look at this. So you want to look at all things. We want to look at the title here. Okay. We want to look at the key to understand what it's about. Just give it a good look-see. What's going on here? Is there a caption at the bottom of it? Yes. The first, we want to look at the caption. That's just as important as any other passage in the whole thing. Consider this infographic as a passage. The first transatlantic electric telegraph message was sent in 1858, and by 1902, 44 years later, the British all-red line connected most of the world. And you can see that going through. And I'm guessing that this extends out here and comes back in over there on the other side through the Pacific. And it's just zigzags everywhere. And that's the telegraph line apparently under the water. So it's only really focusing on that. And then all the land stuff, I guess, can connect up to that too. Because laying a cable down in the water has got to be annoying. It's annoying laying it over land too. So, okay. And then we have another thing here, which is relating to paragraph number 8. That's what I have here. C, paragraph 8. Okay. So telegraph message is transmitted. Okay. So we're going to look at the title. We're going to look at the axis. This is the year. This is the millions of messages transmitted. Okay. They both start from 0. Okay. And then look at your source. That's not a caption, but it's source info. And it's coming from History Stats of the U.S., Colonial Times, okay, from Washington, D.C. So it looks like a U.S. publication. So we're getting some data there. What can we note? We note the info goes up. There's a big jump here, okay, from 1910 to 1920. There was a lot going on in the U.S. at the time. Industrial Revolution. Actually, the Industrial Revolution is happening through this whole thing. But, okay. And I was born in that century. I was not born in 1920. Don't get me wrong, guys. So so that's some of what we're piecing together there. All right, so we're finally at the questions. Which statement best describes the author's use of problem solution in paragraph 2 to contribute to the development of the ideas? So what was the problem solution going on there? Anybody out there want to give a shout out for it? What's the problem solution that might be happening there? Says there's a few of you out there. Problem solution that might be happening there. Anybody? Well, we put over here some notes. Basically, he's in a learning process here, and he's got a problem. Is that he wants to try to figure out how to use. Might be possible. This part right here. He speculated it might be possible to send a coded message. So how does that develop in the whole main idea? The telegraph wouldn't have existed otherwise, right? So there's things like that we have to figure out. So that's the problem solution. And that feeds the whole main idea, because again, the main idea was the telegraph to connect the world via electricity, okay? So let's look at each thing in turn and try to make sense of it. So Morse's discussion on a ship about Faraday's electromagnetic magnet reminded him of Yale College lectures on electricity. That's true. So everything's true up to here, which he had enjoyed but not fully understood. That's still true. And it inspired him to learn more about electricity from his colleague Gale. Okay? Is that necessarily true? That's not quite 100% true, even though Gale was involved. Okay, he was already inspired, so not quite sure. And then, is that the problem solution? So it's not horrible. So let's give it one maybe. Okay, Moore's discouragement over his lack of knowledge of electricity. Was he discouraged? He had a lack of, he definitely had a lack of knowledge, but was he discouraged? Is that true? Prompted him to experiment with batteries, magnets, and wires, which led to the development of the long. Okay, so that's false. I don't think he was discouraged. In fact, everything here is talking about him moving forward, even when setbacks were there. Um, in fact, it even uses words that I pointed out at a later stage, not necessarily about that. Um, it said he was desperate here, but I don't think it was not from that kind of perspective. It was like, they laid the wire down and they're like, uh-oh, that kind of a thing. So I don't think it meant like the same notion of discouragement here. Okay, C. Morris's difficulty in understanding how the electromagnetic work was frustrating. Again, I don't think they're really going there. And it pushed him to create a new system. No, that's, again, B and C are really the same answer in a way. Okay, D. Morris's long-time fascination. Okay, does he have a long-time fascination with electricity at least? Yeah, it gave us the thing where he started the school and he's still interested. A couple of years later, he's still talking about it in the ship. And then it talks about him playing around with magnets and stuff. Was not enough to make up for his lack of knowledge. So that's true too. Okay, so that's true. A is true. B is true about electricity. So we eventually sought help from Gale C. So that's true. So this is all true, and it's actually what happened. So A goes out. Okay, everybody go to 49. Okay, 50. Which statement describes how the author's use of sequencing in paragraph 3 contributes to the overall structure of the passage? So what's the sequencing going on in 3? Okay, there's a series of things that are happening there that he's going through. There's a couple of events there. There's a little like mini plot happening in paragraph number 3 there, right? And that kind of mini plot is how this whole thing is evolving. So we're trying to figure out sequencing affects the structure that the author chose in approaching this passage. One thing that's happening is the author seems to be doing this chronologically. Okay, nothing's necessarily referring back. It's almost like he's journaling the activity from a higher level, if you will. Okay, so is that maybe what the question's looking for? I'm not sure yet. My voice is giving out. I hope my voice is going to last until SHSAT Day because I want to do more sessions with you guys, and I also have kids to tutor. Where are we here? 50. All right. So how does the statement describe the author's use of sequencing in paragraph 3 contribute to the overall structure of the passage? It shows that several people were simultaneously attempting to create the electrical telegraph. Now, I did mention before that it probably was not just him, and we also have the thing like about Henry inventing the bell and so on. So even though the bell wasn't necessarily literally the telegraph, there was stuff going on here. So this statement is true. So the question is, does it refer back to what 50 is asking of us? Describes how the author's use of sequencing contributes to the overall structure. Well, the overall structure is also intending to point us to things like the main idea. So is this what E is talking about? Or is it talking about the teamwork? Not sure. So I'm just going to put a tilde here. I'm not even going to put the M. I'm not sure. Okay. It may turn out to be the best answer. F. It shows how the invention of the telegraph depends on info and techniques discovered by others. Hey, I like that because the author did take on this iterative incremental build-up process. So I'm almost ready to circle F. So that's an M for sure. Okay. G. It shows that multiple means of long-distance communications were being used at the same time. If they're talking about the semaphore, perhaps. But I don't really know, is that really affecting the structure and the sequencing? No, I think G is just an out there, just a kind of an out there thing, right? And then H, it shows how quickly long distance communications change from visual signals, which is the semaphore, to electrical signals. Paragraph 3 really do that? Let me see here. No, there's a couple of things here. First of all, three is centric about the early years, so to speak. The other is we also know that the passage talks about that this was not an overnight process. There were setbacks, like his original proposal got canned by Congress because of the Great Depression and things like that. So H doesn't really seem to be there. Um, Let me see how I feel about E still. And F I said was a slam dunk, but let's look at E again. It shows that 7 people was trying to. Yeah, that's not really what's going on here. So E is out. Okay, and F rules. F rules, man. Okay, 51 is a general question about the passage as a whole. So the details of the section. No, sorry, it's about the growth of an idea section only. So if we go back to the growth of the idea section, that's this here. It's paragraph 2 and 3, which is he has the seed of what's going on, and he builds it up, right? And I bracketized that here, over here, MIQ 51, main idea based on question 51. But we have a bi-directional thing. In case you get lost, you can go back to where you started from. All right, guys? Do you have any tips for reading questions? I'm doing them right now. That's what I'm talking about. We're ripping apart the passage and we're ripping apart the questions and the choices. This is a cognitive thinking process. Okay. So I've been spending the past hour giving you guys tips as well as the other ones. Um, Most of the tips I can give you guys, like off the top of my head, I'm certain you guys already know them. So that's why we're exploring this in greater detail. I do have other YouTube videos where I do just basically just do that. I offer ELA tips, especially in the Q&A sessions that we had, with no video attached to them. All right, guys. So I'm trying to give different perspectives on how to attack the different passages and stuff, including the reading, the revising and editing section. All right. Um, so let's go back to 51. I lost my train of thought here. So the details convey a central idea about the passage by doing what. So this is a lot of minutia going on about basically how it started up is the growth of the idea. Okay. So 51. I have a feeling just based on what it is, it might be tricky. Okay. So the details convey the central idea, which is that telegraphers around the world through electricity, suggested that the collaborative effort of colleagues resulted in a successful communication over a wire. That is certainly true. Okay, absolutely true. All right. Does that convey the central idea? I'm not convinced it does. Okay, that wasn't how I captured the main idea. So I'm going to lightly cross out A. Okay, because I don't think it's there. A great deal of interest and work was devoted to understanding how to use electricity to send signals. Yeah, because electricity is central to this thing. And a great deal of work was done, especially in this section. That's what this section is about. It's talking about all the work. So I'm going to give B a big M. Okay. Faraday's invention inspired the invention of the telegraph. No, that's false. Um, Certainly it was part of the seed of it, but to say it, that word is too iffy there for me. All right, guys. Um, like poem and fiction. Um, yeah. Wait 1 second. I'm going to post 2 links relating to specifically SHSAT poetry. One second. Get the second link. It's a good time to say to subscribe to the channel, to like the channel, to like the video, right? Helping you guys out. It takes me a lot of time and effort to do, so it would be wonderful for you guys to be able to do that. That focuses strictly on SHSAT. I also have this because main idea is so crucial to a lot of this. Give me 1 second. My browser's freaking out. I have what's called my Ela Starter Kit. I'll send some other links, which is basically your core / fundamental ELA kind of stuff that if you don't know what's in these videos, you're going to have a problem answering general questions. So there's tips and stuff about main idea and stuff like that inside of there. All right. So there's a lot of kind of fundamentals, techniques, insights that are more abstract, but you must know and be able to address to answer some of these questions. All right. Okay. So does the growth of an idea convey D, that colleges like Yale played a great role in making new discoveries about electricity? No, he was a student at Yale, but Yale itself didn't make the discoveries. And furthermore, he was apparently not the best electricity student in the classes he took. So D is just like fake news for sure. Okay, and that leaves us with B. So 51 is B. All right. Okay, 52 is F. Okay, so what I like to do is try to answer the question just by looking at the boldface, and if I need to, I'm going to go back up to the passage. Okay, so the desperate Moss gave the go-ahead, and the line was completed in time for the dramatic and spit. So this is talking about where he finally gets the contract. They build the underground pipe and put the cable down, but the cable turns out to be defective. So now they're like, what the heck are we going to do, right? Or actually, I don't think he got the money yet, right? He doesn't get the money yet. He's trying to do a proof of concept. So they picked the 40 miles from the capital to Baltimore just to do a proof of concept idea that this was even sensible and that he could pass the signal from one place to the other and all this kind of stuff like that. So they already invested some of the money in that, and they're kind of half stuck now. So the desperate Morse gave the go-ahead, and the line was completed on time for the dramatic and spectacular. So they're particularly pointing out those 2 words. What about them? Okay. Spectacular, successful link, and it was successful. That's important. It could have failed. Between the Supreme Court chamber of the Capitol building and the railroad station of Baltimore. Okay. So the words dramatic and spectacularly convey what? What's going on here? So I think everybody knows what they mean. So this is almost a weird vocab question. What are they really looking for? What's the search here? Okay, so this is a pretty odd question. So it might be super hard. Okay, so let's just look at all the options here. A sense of relief, was that true? And fulfillment that the line was finished. I can buy that. So maybe, right? A sense of wonder and celebration that the Telegraph has finally accomplished. So what we have is this. Here's our A, here's our B. We have relief and fulfillment that it was finished. We have wonder and celebration that it was accomplished. We have excitement about the future. We have confidence about continuing. Do you see how that works? So we'll build the truth table out of the paragraph again, the answers choices rather, sorry. By the way, going back to Oreo's question, this is why we need to rip through this. because I can't just explain this as a tip rattling off my head. It's really worth demonstrating this. So the word dramatic and spectacularly in the sentence convey a sense of relief that it was finished. Yeah, I buy that. Sense of wonder and a celebration that it was accomplished. Yeah. In fact, I have a problem because this almost sounds like E. A feeling of excitement about the future? No. This, although that might be true as well, this is about the actual resolution of solving that problem that they had. So it's not G. Okay. And a feeling of confidence about continuing? No. So H is wrong for the same reason. Okay. This is not about the future. This is not about progressing. Even though that was true, they were just happy to get past the proof of concept test here. Okay. And then they're going to worry about the next step later. So what's going on between E and F? E and F is weird. So let's give it some thought. So maybe it's time to actually go back to paragraph 7. See if we can get the tiebreaker here. I wouldn't call this hair splitting, but maybe it is. Let's see. So realizing the invention. Morse hired a contractor to lay the wire. It was defective. They wasted stuff. The desperate boss gave the overhead, and then it flips right into the concluding paragraph. So we don't really have a ton to go on here. So let's go back to the question and try to analyze it deeper. Got to find it first. Okay, here. So, what's the thought process that might want to happen here? We have to hair split some here. Anybody have thoughts? What might be the hair splitting happen here? Imagine you're there. Imagine you're there either at Congress or at the Baltimore station, or imagine even further, you're Morse. You're Morse and his team. How are you feeling? Right? Not just Congress members or whatever, but how are you feeling? You just did it. You just did this challenge that nobody ever did before. You're certainly relieved and you're certainly fulfilled. But I think you're more like ecstatic. Okay? So for that reason, F wins. And if you want to look at it this way, E is a subset of F. Because they're full of wonder and celebration, they also have relief and fulfillment. But if they had relief and fulfillment, they're not necessarily full of wonder and celebration. Okay? So this is a tight kind of thing here. All right? So be careful with that. It's a hair splitter for sure. Okay, 53. Which sentence is the best summary of how Morse obtained the funding necessary to build this telegraph system? So we went through the chronology of it all. A lot happened. So what the heck are they possibly going to ask us about that? There's a lot of spins they can put on this. All right, let's try to see if we can make sense of it. Morse's application was delayed until 1843. That's true. Okay, so each of these split up that way? Yeah, there's a thing and a comma. No, each one doesn't work that way. So at least up to here, that's true. So he spends time traveling in Europe, where he concentrated on obtaining a patent for the system. So that's true. So A is completely true, but is it the best summary of how we obtained the funding necessarily for the thing? We obtains the funding from the U.S., and they don't really give us a conclusion of what happened to him in Europe. There's just, in fact, he was looking for a patent. He wasn't looking for the funding. So it's not A. Okay? A is true, but it doesn't answer question 53. Morse applied for a government grant that required both houses of Congress and the president to pass a bill. So we know at one point that it tells us that the president, I think it was Truman, it said or whatever, I can't remember, signed the eventual bill. So we know it has to pass, and so that's true. Awarding him the $30K for his telegraph product. Okay, so it's asking how he obtained it. Okay, so it's the fact that 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 Congress gave it to him. Is that how? Is that really what they're looking for? I think that's weak if it's the right answer, but let's see, because it doesn't seem to be false. Wait a second. What? Wait, I'm on B here. Sorry. So I buy B partially. Okay, C. Morse applied for appropriation, right? So that's true. He did that. And conducted the demonstration. Ah, right? That's the important thing. He had to do the proof of concept to show that it could work. And after a delay caused by the Great Depression, yes, Congress approved it. Oh yeah. So I'm going to throw B out because C is definitely a maybe now. Okay. Working with Gale and Val allowed Morse to find flaws in Henry's work. I don't know that he found flaws in Henry's work to develop his own ideas. And C is so good that D can't be it. And C's the winner. Okay. Okay, 54. The idea I circled. This is about an idea. Is it the main idea? I don't know. Let's see if it's asking us. That in the mid-19th century, so we're talking like 1930s plus, or even past that, let's say 1940s plus, the U.S. was mostly unaware of the possibility of electricity. Is illustrated by what? Description of the government's initial desire to expand a semaphore signal system that used either flags or lights along the U.S. It could be. In fact, the more I look at it, I like it, but let's see. The delay by the House of Reps to pass the bill. I don't actually think it says there was a delay there, so I think that's false. Line 6 years after he applied. No, it was the Great Depression that delayed it, so it's not F. Okay. Discussions of the newly invented electromagnet that sparked the idea of sending codes through wires. That's partially true as well. And H, the description of how an electric circuit could be closed to ring a bell at a distance. So even though Henry's work was there, so that's partially true as well. So G and H are both technical. G is about Faraday. It talked about Faraday earlier, and H talked about Henry. So is that why the U.S. was mostly unaware of the possibility of electricity? This sounds like the use of electricity. So G and H go away. Let me look at E just to make sure. Description of the government's initial desire to expand the semaphore signal system that was currently using either flags or lights in the U.S. I guess that's it. I mean, I don't mean I guess, but it just seems like a weak choice to me. But the other certainly G and H are out, and F is false. So we can say 54 should be E. 55 is the author's point of view. So in some of the other passages, I took the questions out of order, and I think you guys should. On this one, there was a natural flow. There wasn't too many line references. And when there were the references back into the passage, it was by paragraph. So we had bigger bites, if you will, of the paragraph. So we didn't need to really do context sizing to such a deep perspective here. So now we're kind of at a good point, which is that we read the passage, we answered a bunch of questions. So in a way, we're at like a 1.5 read point, just because we know enough about the passage at this point, which is a good sweet spot to be in. Okay, so 55. Which statement would the author most likely agree? Morse's telegraph is successful because the wires are strung above the ground rather than under the ground. Remember this agreement? This agreement is not necessarily about a fact by itself, okay? So A is a fact by itself, that's true. That's definitely true that it worked because the wires were above the ground. Because when they were below the ground, the wires were strung wrong. They were broken cables or whatever it said. They had the wrong insulation on them. So I guess voltage leaked out of it or something like that, okay? So this agreement normally is pertaining to the main idea too, okay? We still have to look at that overall tone, overall main idea, overall author's point of view, and we need to know when the question is asking us to zero in or stay away, okay? So, so the problem with A is that even though it's true, it doesn't have to do with the author's point of view, okay? And even though it's true, it's false from the perspective that it wasn't just successful because the wires were strung up. It was successful because of all the work this guy put into it. Okay? If the insulation on the cables put through the pipe was correct, then the underground would have worked as well. Okay? So the underground was not the error. It was the insulation on the cable that was the error. Okay? So don't get screwed here. So for that reason, A is no good. At least in my opinion, that's why. Okay. What statement does the author most likely agree? Understand the importance of the telegraph. Require detailed knowledge of electricity. So if you notice when I went back to the main idea, when I snapshotted it after I read the passage, I put via electricity. Because that's significant. If you remember the last sentence of the first paragraph, the author also puts that in with the M dash. We have M dash electricity. So the fact that electricity is going on here is good. What's not good is they have hiccups in the middle of a live stream. Let me try to take a sip of something again. Somebody needs to scam me. All right, where are we? 56. We're almost one question away from the end. No, wait, where are we? We're on 55. Understanding the importance of Morse's telegraph system required detailed knowledge of electrical systems. Okay, I think I'm not going to rule it out, but I think it's weak. So I'm going to put a tilde M, one tilde, because I like that it's pointing out the electrical thing, but I don't know if that's capturing the main idea, the whole across the whole passage. Okay, the implementation of Morse's telegraph system was overly influenced by economic factors. Now that's true. If he didn't get the seed money, it may not have happened, and the Great Depression held him up and stuff like that. But again, even though this isn't false, it's kind of a neither here nor there thing, just like A kind of was. Okay, so the answer is not C. That's not really what the passage is about, even though it's true. And that's really what they're talking about, most likely agree. Normally, you should throw these away and just say, what does the author agree with here? Right? At a top higher level, if you will. Okay. Morse's invention of the telegraph made great strides in connecting people across the U.S. So if you go back to my main idea, that's what I say the main idea is. It's about telegraph connecting people. By the way, the electricity. Okay? And I also put it in a parenthesis. He puts it in the M dash. So it's almost a secondary thought in the main idea that it's via electricity, even though that's a cornerstone to it. Where's that question? And the last paragraph, in the concluding paragraph of most passages, is often getting back to the topic of the main idea. So for that reason, D leaves out the electrical part, but let's kick out B even though it mentions the electric part, because B doesn't talk about the connection part. Okay, and that's what this is about. Okay, and by the way, that's if we look at the title, which I skipped looking at. I always talk about looking at the title. The title doesn't help us. It just talks about the telegraph itself. Okay, it leaves out the invention of the telegraph connects us or something like that. Right? There's a missing phrase here that should be there. So that's what's going on there. Okay, 56 is a good lead-in because 56 is pointing us to look at the central idea. And we just reviewed the central idea multiple times. So that implies answering 56 should be easy. So let's see if this is actually true. So how does the map, so we're going back to the map. So the map was about laying the cable at a certain time frame. So it's giving us the time frame down here. Okay, 1902, and it's about this here, and it gives us the 1902 again. It's the telegraph line, which basically is underwater, right? Connecting the international connections, which backs up the last paragraph as well. Okay, telegraph soon had westward, and within Morse's own lifetime, they connected the continents of Europe and America. The only way to do that is to go across water. Okay. I'm trying to find a question again. Okay. So it indicates how welcome the improvement of long-distance communications was in the U.S. Wait, is that the question? I have no, wait, sorry. How does the map provide support for the central idea? By demonstrating that it was greatly exceeded the limitations of the previous long-distance communication? Does this greatly exceed people on high towers and other descriptions they gave? Oh yeah, booyah. So there's a big M here, okay, for 56, okay. Indicated that Morse was lacking foresight by seeking a packet only in North America. No, we know he looked in Europe. We don't know that he got granted it there. And we also don't know after if he got it granted in the U.S. if he actually went to Europe. So F is just ridiculous. Okay, G. By proving that Gale's advice helping Morse extended the telegraph's range. So if you remember, he originally couldn't do it over long range, and I think it said they used relays or something to do that much farther than originally thought. So does that support a central idea? The central idea is not about extending the range. The central idea is about connecting the world, right? So it's not G, okay? And 56H, by showing that the Morse telegraph had a surprising immense influence across the world. Okay, so that's true. So I'm partially in on H. Is that the main idea though? Okay. Immense influence on the world. So the operative word is influence here. It connected the world. But what was the influence on the world? Are we told that in the passage? The influence being that we got connected. But how else did it happen? We're not really given all the details. Remember I said there was a turning point here? Between paragraph 7 and 8, I think it was. Yeah, between paragraph 7 and 8, there's a turning point. Where we're given the chronology, and all of a sudden it flips into a summary in 8. So we're left with a lot of details left out, and it only tells us we're connected. That's just the end. It just says we're all connected. Okay. So any influence that it may have had, where is that question? It's really just the connection. It doesn't E say that better anyway, right? Doesn't E sound better than H? Certainly it's stronger and it covers a lot of it. And that's what the passage is about. It started out by telling us about the semaphores, and then how it just greatly exceeded. And the passage even mentions words like that too, I think, in that last paragraph. And it ties in, well, I was going to say it tied into the paragraph 7, but it really doesn't. All right, so there's no more, we can't make a prediction, and there's really not even an inference there for H. I think that was H, right? Or, yeah, so E rules for that reason. This one isn't really a hair splitter, but you had to make a choice there, and you did have to give it a little deeper analytics. And then the last question is, how does the graph support the ideas of paragraph number 8? So the graph is backing up that millions of messages occurring as the years go by from 1870 onward. Lots of telegraphs are happening, and that's talking about messages transmitted. So paragraph 8, the theme of 8, the idea of 8 was that there was now stuff from coast to coast, right? And now it's international too. So telegraphs are expanding and popular and kind of stuff like that, all right? So 57, how does the graph support that? It indicates how welcome the improvement of long-distance communications was in the U.S. I guess since it was going coast to coast, then the numbers increased, and the data in that in the graph and the graph seems to be U.S. only. I'm not, because it seems to be from a U.S. source. So this is certainly true. So I think we need to rule an A, and I'm not even going to put a tilde there. It provides evidence of the dramatic increase in the number of telegraph messages. So so that's certainly true. As Morse system expands across the U.S., that's certainly true as well. In fact, it seems totally spot on. So B is going to get a giant M, okay, with an arrow on it. Yeah, booyah. It reveals that the 20th century, millions of people had used the telegraph despite earlier hesitations. So the passage doesn't talk about anything like that. There were earlier problems, right, about money and cable and getting and doing electrical things, but I don't know if I would use the word hesitation. So that's a poor choice. So C is out. And D, it shows how improvements that allowed Morse code to be read in real time made relaying telegraphs much faster and increased the system's usage. So it does talk about at one point that it was coming out on paper, and then telegraph operators were able to process that. That is in the first sentence of 8 over here. It's coming out a long strip, and the operator had the ability to interpret it in real time. So that is true. But does the graph is not necessarily talking about that improvement let that to happen. Okay, that it could be read in real time. That improvement is not what necessarily, and I think people just liked it, right? So D is weak at best. So let's kick it out. So left between A and B. So which does it seem that the graph supports? It indicates how welcome long-distance communication was in the U.S. It does, but long-distance communication, I guess, was already something they wanted to happen. It provides evidence of the dramatic increase in the number of telegraph messages. Well, isn't that what the graph is? Isn't that exactly what the graph is? As Morse expanded across the U.S. All right, so that's how it supports it. 8 talks about it expanding, and 8 is giving exact like data for that. So then B wins. Okay, and then we are going to start the math. What I might do is, if you guys want to either put in the comments now, or email me. What I might do is some of the parts of Form B. Is it worth doing the poem in Form B the next time? Or maybe the revising editing on Form B before we go into the math? Because I think a lot of you are struggling, even though some of you are confused about the math and so on. It seems like it's more a natural fit for a lot of you, in that you can break it down and stuff like that. When it comes to the ELA, a lot of you seem to get confused because there's a passage involved, and you kind of don't know what the questions are all the time. Like in math, it might say, solve the exponent, or even if it's a word problem in math, you might realize exponents are involved. But this involves passages that are not related to anything you know about. You just learned a whole bunch of facts about the Telegraph, which has nothing to do with ELA per se, right? It's not like they're going to throw you calculus on the math section. So that's the gotcha with the ELA part. So what do you guys think about that? Should we do some of the Form B's part next on the ELA, or should we jump right into math? Or we can iterate back and forth. The clean progression is, because I'm trying to do this from cover to cover, is to do the math the next and finish the Form A from question 57 onward. But there's multiple choices here. All right. Okay, anybody? Have a good day. And don't forget to email me, guys, if you're stuck on any certain problem. Even if you're not sure about some of the stuff I covered here, just shoot me a message. All right, guys? Peace out.